the opportunities to find the kind of work where you could pay your way through school, I just don't know if it's there anymore. I truly don't.
No, I really don't think it is, because I look at my children, that, one of them actually ran a couple of my businesses for me. And, and he was like in his 18, 19, 20 doing it. And ran them very good to, I decided, one was at skate park, but then we owned a bike shop too for quite a long time. Then, after I decided, look, I'm retired now. I don't want to do any of this anymore. And then, he had to go out and look for a job. And you know what type of jobs he could find? They were low paying, minimum wage, or just slightly above it. Even with his experience of managing businesses, they didn't care. Yeah. That's what's scary.
Yeah, it's just really, really different. And it took me quite a while to get over. They're all a bunch of bums, It took me quite a while to get over that, and I really have come to realize that, it's one thing for me, say, to beat my chest about, when I was X years old, I went out there and did X, Y, and Z. Well, the opportunity to do X, Y, and Z was out there that you could seize. Now, not so much.
Well, unless you want to work in a fast food pace. I mean, a lot of the companies that were here years ago, are not manufacturing stuff in this country anymore like they used to. Curtis Mathes, gave up, about 40 years or 35 years ago, they gave up making TVs in this country. There was a company out in back somewhere around the Carolinas, whatever. Last company, I didn't even realize it, we're still making TVs. And they went out of business here about 4 months ago because of the tariffs. And 100 people lost their jobs. But, the electronic companies are not here anymore. I mean, they don't repair printers anymore. They're throwaway. Your digital TV, when it goes bad, your LCD TV, they don't repair them anymore. You just go buy another one. So, technicians are not wanted anymore. Even commercial radio nowadays is mostly canned nowadays.
Yep, satellite fed, you bet. And you just pick the format. In fact, I worked with a company called Shamrock in Texas, and that's what they did. And they would even customize the format. So if you're in Poughkeepsie or someplace, they would, have a certain number of breaks, and the jockey would read the call letters, and it sounded like local radio. It really did, except it was all satellite feed. So all those workers just went away.
Oh yeah.
All the engineers, everybody, it was all they bought the signal and pumped it out of there and produced everything in one studio in Texas.
Oh yeah, and that's scary. I let's face it, AM radio is dying. I don't even expect it to be around much longer. I know in the UK, I think AM radio is totally dead or almost dead.
Yeah, they've gone totally to digital. There's FM around, but yeah, you're right. Well, part of it is, nobody can read the future, but we're going through a turmoil, social change and economic change that's every bit as great as the Industrial Revolution. And you think it's bad now for the blue collar segment. I've seen the projections. I was in the software business for quite a while, and I know people, working in robotics and AI, and you should see the projections. They're projecting, Gary, that 30% to 50% of the blue collar jobs are gonna be gone in the next 20 years. That's a huge number. That's millions of people.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what type of jobs are out there. I mean, they can only build so many Burger Kings and Taco Bells.
Well, that's it. No one quite knows how it's going to, Germany, for example, has gotten ahead of the curve by really instituting major government programs to retrain people for green energy and various things, and they've avoided the huge impact that other countries have suffered, including ours. And I think nobody knows for sure what new things are going to open up, but education and training, without that, there's nothing, and it's going to get worse. It's really, it's a sea change. It truly is, and I feel sorry for those people.
Well, even in what you're doing, writing a book, I notice, like, when you go on Facebook, how many people go out and write a book? I mean, there is so many authors out there, self-publishing. It is crazy. I've seen in the last year, it like double or tripled amount how many people are coming out with a book. And what scares me is some of these people are cranking these books out like in a week's time, and then they wonder why they're not making any money.
Yeah, it's really quite amazing. You know, now that I'm published, I get this flow of stuff coming in, most of which is designed to fatten the ego and slim the wallet, you know. And the part of what's going on is creatively, what you see is all kinds of pitches out there. Anybody can write a book. I like to think that's not true. And B, you can publish it and, you know, make all this money. That's not true. And there's things about here's how fast you can write a book, and you know, it's sort of like being driven artistically, like what you're doing to be on the air. If you've got what the drive is, what a lot of the pitch for people who think they want to write is find a topic that'll sell, and then write a kind of a pulp fiction book about that, how to retire in 5 years, that kind of thing. And then put it all over social media and try and sell 10,000 copies. And to me, that's not writing as I think of it, any more than live broadcasting is having a satellite feed into your station.
Well, I will say this. You know what I think, and this is what I talked about with Art Bell quite a bit before I decided to come on. And if you go on Facebook, okay, God forbid, but you go on Facebook, okay, you got Facebook Live, you got all these people, you know, on the internet. You know, before I made the decision to come back on broadcasting, I worked hard to know what I know in broadcasting. Okay, I'm not the best broadcaster. I've been out of it for a long time. I've only been back into it for about a year and a half. But, you know, what I find is people go to Walmart, buy a $15 microphone, plug it in their USB port, and now they have a talk show.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
And the thing is, and then there's all these companies out there that, I hate to say it, I fleece them you. They say, hey, you can have a radio show and have all these listeners. Well, you know what? You can start a radio show. It takes a long time, a lot of work to get the listenership. You know, when I first started out, Art Bell laughed at me. Literally laughed at me. He said, hey, do a show. And this is before he passed on, I should say. I'm not talking to him now. He's gone. But anyway, you know, he said, do a show that's your passion. So, you know, I did a dumb thing. I started a show called Motorcycle Talk. Now, I figured, okay, bikers are going to listen to it.
Yeah.
Well, I think I had 15 listeners total. And you know, Art called me up out of the blue, and he says, okay, have you learned your lesson, Gary? And I go, yeah, I think I'm just going to, you know, hang it up. He goes, don't. Get back into what you used to do. You were okay doing paranormal. Do it. And, you know, I then restructured how I did it. And I had 15 listeners. Then all of a sudden I had 30. The last report I have on one of the major apps, I have over 600 and some listeners listening. On all the other apps, it's averaging 260,000. So I'm close to 1 million downloads, play on demand, and live listeners.
Oh, I love that. Is that right? Wow, that's fantastic.
But you know what? You know, I get up in the morning usually at 5 o'clock. I start booking people up, you know, for my show, looking for people for my show, you know, interviewing them on phone conversations. I do a lot of those. And then, you know, I take a 2-hour break in the afternoon. Then I start getting ready for the show. I put in about average 13 hours a day to do my show. Plus I run a network.
I'm sure that's right. I'm sure that's right.
And then I run the network. So then I board op these other 5 hosts for their shows. So I'm in the studio probably about 70 hours a week.
Yeah, but people don't want to hear that. You know, this crazy radio guy that I told you about, he got into a place in Malibu on the beach. And he had a beach house there we used to work out of. And he was one of the hardest working guys I ever knew. Crazy as a tick. but hardworking. And he used to demand of himself that he would make 100 to 150 phone calls a day. So he'd start on the East Coast, follow the time zones across to Hawaii. And so anyway, one day we're working away there, and he says, okay, some guys from NBC are coming out. Let's go upstairs. So we go into his main house, and I mean, Gary, this place was beautiful, right on the water in the colony in Malibu where the stars live and all this stuff. So he goes in, he puts on some shorts and a Hawaiian shirt, and we go out and sit on the balcony. And I'm looking at him thinking, what the hell? And these guys from NBC show up, and they come in, and they say, my gosh, Frank, is this how you work? And lying like a trooper, Frank looks at him and says, yeah, I just sit here and watch the seagulls, and people call me with contracts and, whatever. And I'm looking at him like the alien that's just popped out of his belly. And when these guys left, I said, what was that? And he looked over me and I said, Frank, you're one of the hardest working guys I know. And he said, Wayne, nobody wants to hear that. They want to believe that we just sit here on the beach in Malibu and we make all this money and we don't have to work.
Oh, yeah.
Or work hard for it. And that's that's exactly what you're saying, is that's the pitch, get the, because media is sexy and it's desirable, and, get all that, and you don't have to work hard, just plug in a microphone and talk for a few minutes. It ain't gonna, you're right, it ain't gonna happen. It just ain't gonna happen. Not without a tremendous amount of work.
Oh, yeah. And talent. And you just can't all of a sudden plug a microphone in your USB port and expect something to happen. But you know what? Some people are happy, and you know what? It's a hobby for some people,
Yeah. I suppose there's worse places to spend your time, like in the local bar, I mean, you're better off fooling around probably with that. But yeah, it makes me sad to see it, because a lot of people get fleeced. And there are a lot of people get their hearts broken over it too, so.
Oh yeah, because I know some people this one person has written a couple books that are really fantastic, but she's a female and she uses a female name, and her book sales aren't where it should be, and I got a feeling, I think it's because if she would have used a man's name with the book she wrote, I think they would have been selling like hotcakes.
Yeah. Yeah, it all comes, in the end, if you've got the talent and you produce a good product, it all comes down to the marketing. How many good products, whether they're creative or technology or whatever, have just died because they were great, but the marketing wasn't there. People don't know about you. Well, you're not going to, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I have had actually some people who probably wrote the worst books I've ever read in my life on my show. Absolutely so bad that I couldn't even get into the first chapter. And then I just kind of tossed it off the side. They come on the show, but they are really good at talking and selling themselves, that, after being on my show and other shows, the books are going and selling like crazy. And that's where a lot of people don't realize you got to promote yourself. You got to do what you're doing. You got to get out there and be on talk shows. You got to promote your book. You got to have a good storyline, a punchline, and a sales line all tied in. If you don't do it, and if you just write the book and put it on some piece of media and expect it to sell, it's not going to happen.
Boy, that is so right. Is this the moment where I do another shameless plug?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, thank you, sir. The book is Tales from the Day, and available on Amazon, both an audio version and a visual version, Kindle, hard copy. And so all you need to do is go type in Tales from the Day, and if necessary, my name, Wayne-D-mcfarland, and it pops up. And it's got a picture of me on the cover, and Gary, I look good.
It's not bad. I think I look better, but that's beside the point. I use probably more makeup.
Oh, man. It's possible, but yeah, I got to say, I really enjoy doing this kind of thing. And you may find it interesting that I've been on a number of podcasts who, let me just say, I have to tell you this one, stroke jobs notwithstanding, this is